I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of these quotes from a lot of these teams that have exited, AJ. I don't love it. Seems like we're hearing a very similar message from a lot of these places, and I'm not used to us hearing this immediately upon teams ending their season. Feels like it's a lot of like accountability issues. Got to check the ego at the door. Tucker Kraft came out and said, it's been brewing for us. We could kind of feel that this was going to happen. Said he plans to step up as a leader. Wouldn't call the season a complete failure, but definitely disappointing. And then said the Packers need to wake up. I think that's like an urgency thing.
Yeah.
That is like an accountability thing. Mike McDaniel said, you got to let guys know that they can't do it, but I can't just fine them and they don't care. What else am I supposed to do? And then George Pickens in the Pittsburgh Steelers situation is continuing to be a big one because the Steelers, once again, don't win a playoff game. It's like, well, this guy was late to the game on Christmas. So, I mean, that's just one particular thing that was being reported. It feels like accountability is starting to become something that is lacking. And we wondered what the ripple effects were going to be of the NIL transfer portal era. We did wonder what that was going to be. And I'm not saying that it is a clean sweep. I don't ever want to brush something with a broad brush. That'd be rude to do an entire generation like that, because clearly there are still a lot of dogs that are playing the sport. But I think there's a lot of guys that since like high school have kind of been like the breadwinners almost for the family.
They've been the dude, right? They've been the dude, so no one's been able to really tell them anything. That's the problem.
Because they're making more money than everybody. And it's like, hey, what are you talking about?
And coaches, a lot of times though, coaches at a young age will tend to put up with that because the dude's a superstar and you're going to keep your job because the dude catches 4 touchdowns a game.
Be who you can afford to be has always been a thing. Well, these kids at a younger age are able to be something that only professionals have been able to be because they are becoming professionals younger, but I don't think they're becoming pros. That's the issue. I think in the NFL, it's like be a pro, be a pro, be a pro is how people describe like accountability, being on time, making sure you're taking care of your shit. And it takes time for people to become a pro, but it feels like there's far less pros than there was back in the day. And it feels like there's a lot more professionals that have kind of been treated in an entitled fashion, have been enabled their entire lives. And now at college, if they run into any adversity, it's like, yeah, you can get out of here and you'll get paid more. You'll actually get rewarded more for running away from any trouble or potentially meanies that are not accepting of how you're playing now and want to make you even better. And here's, once again, Coach Vrabel talking about that exact point with
Patriots Unfiltered
up in New England.
The accountability, maybe they were enabled at college. Don't want to tell them things that may disappoint them or upset them for fear for them to go and look for another offer. So sometimes that leads to a player that's not as accountable to the team as he needs to be. And that's okay. Like we can change. We can, do our part to help change some of those behaviors.
We can fix that. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. These guys suck, but
what a nice way to say like some of these guys are turds and they're not going to be here.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm not saying he didn't know his current roster, but there are guys. Yeah, what a nice way for him to describe that process that's going to play out.
Yeah, and we can help try to change that too. Some of these guys are turds and they suck. But how do you think you go about finding guys? I think a big part of this next era right now of having a successful NFL team and even college team is you can't pick the turds. You just got to, how do you figure out who they are? Because if you get a turd, you're in trouble. You're already set back money-wise. The rest of the locker room sees it. The building sees it, everything like that. But if you get the right guys, you got guys playing through broken backs. There's different levels to this thing. There's different messages. There's different cultures, basically, being decided by these decisions. How do they know who's the right guy? How do you know legitimately?
You try to do your research as much as possible, and we hear it when you're getting recruited for college or you're getting recruited for the draft. The coaches or whoever they call your high school janitor, your high school coach, your teacher, obviously your parents, all these different people, and try to get as much background as possible. And sometimes there are turds, sometimes they're just immature, and you can put them in the right environment, you put them in the right meeting room, you put them in the right building, and they can definitely I've seen it before where a lot of guys come in a certain way and they're just around certain people and held to a different standard, and they definitely change and mature and become pros. And I think all of us had to learn how to become pros, what that actually means, regardless of how good your intentions are. You got to learn how to watch film, you got to learn how to take care of your body, you got to learn what to do in the off season. So I think a part of it is so much movement, so much turnover, not only with coaches, but players. So now these young guys coming in, maybe have a good attitude, or maybe on that line, on that fringe, they're in a good room around good vets. Because I think coaches are important for sure. The front office, resources, all that stuff is important. But I think most importantly, it's the vets and how they police their own locker room. Then once they leave and go on, it's the next group. That's what you saw with the Patriots. Like the Patriots, it was the Ty Law, the Vrabels, the Brewskis, and then that kind of the next iteration of that was McCourty and Chung and Edelman and Gronk and Brady and all those certain guys who are kind of the pillars in those programs. And hey, this is how we do things around here. So I don't think we have as much of that. So it's not so much the players changing, but it's the environments that I think are changing, too much or too fast.
I agree completely. As somebody that got in trouble early and then learning and watching and observing and listening, and I was very lucky that I got to watch Adam Vinatieri work and be in that locker room and kind of watch how they do it. And I think that's why I was so open to like Zaire about like, hey, is your locker room, man? Like, I think accountability and being on time and work ethic and everything. And now, granted, I'm not in this era, so I do not know this era at this time in the locker room. But I think that's a big locker room thing as opposed to anybody. Coaches can say whatever they want. They could find McDaniel said, I could find whatever. I'm finding these dudes hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just don't care. They're literally just laughing in my face. They said they sold a T-shirt yesterday and made $200,000. So I don't know what you want from me. That's basically what McDaniel said. But like the locker room kind of has to be the ones that say like, that's not how we go about doing this. In our eyes, I think we're all seeing it the same way, right?
The locker room for sure, but Bill, like I know in New England, like we had like a flash blizzard out of nowhere, and like guys showed up. I was one of the guys, probably like 5-6 of us. We showed up. I showed up like probably 4 or 5 minutes late. And you not only get fined, you get fined for missing a whole day. You got sent at that point, you get sent home with your film and you're gone for the day. So you show up at 8:05 or whatever it is, you're out, you sent home. It wasn't just me, I was, I think, a rookie at that point, maybe a second-year player, but it was, 10-year vets, superstars, a couple guys you missed, you're gone. So everybody's kind of held to that same standard. And his point was like, hey, we're in New England in the middle of the winter. Like, be a pro.
Everybody else was able to
So that was kind of the standard, and it's definitely, and you just understood it. You took it, and like these things that happen, people being late or missing treatment, it may be a one-off or a two-off here with the team for the year, but that's not like, oh, I can't keep finding these guys. Like, what do you want? Like that Shane
Steichen said
that's terrible.
Yeah, guys are gonna be late.
Guys aren't gonna show up on time every time.
It was like that was enough. I heard everything I needed to hear right there.
Yeah,
I heard I heard everything right there, and it's. And I'm not just pointing out, it's not just the Colts I'm learning. I think I'm just so close to the situation here with the Colts that I think it's like, oh, this team is like this. I think there's a chance that this is how we're going to figure out who wins and who doesn't.
Yeah.
The team that is able to deal with the, I don't want to say lack of attention on accountability, but seemingly the lack of care or value for accountability from the team as a whole, that team's going to stink forever. Okay, it doesn't matter who they have owning it, doesn't matter who they have coaching it, GM. I guess the coach probably sets the standard, but it doesn't matter if the locker room does not care about anything.
Yeah,
you're never going to win. Like
no matter how talented they are, eventually they may get in the playoffs or something, but eventually they're going to quit when it really matters, and they're going to turn on each other.
It shows up when it shows up. Yeah. That's kind of that's the whole thing.
Taking care of all that shit, and coaches always said, that just gives you a chance. You know what I mean? That just being in your playbook, take care of your body, being on time, like that just gives you a chance to compete. That doesn't guarantee you're going to go out here and win, but that gives you the best chance. And the McDaniel thing, the coach thing, all of it's bad, but the McDaniel thing was worse because when you see that, that's not like the 40th guy on the roster. That's not that's got to be like a star player or star players who are just repeatedly showing up. We always say act how you can afford to act. So if you're getting paid $20, $25, $30 million a year, you can continue to do that because they're not going to get rid of you. You're making 2-3 times what the head coaches make, what the GM is making. So they're probably not going to get rid of you. You're safe to a certain point. If you're a backup or you're a fringe starter, you're not going to be doing that. So those are the guys who tend to set the cultures in the locker room. So the teams that are still in it, you don't hear pretty much any of that shit.
It's been fascinating to hear all of this year, though. Because I think there is a nice mix of people that like want to be pros. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to say people that want to be pros, but there's people that are like, this is not how this is supposed to be.
Majority, I would assume.
Majority. We would assume. We would hope at least. Like DeForest Buckner coming out and being like, there's just a lot. Everybody's going to have to check their egos. Tucker Kraft being like, we got to wake up. Like, we got to do this. He's a young player.
Well, that's what I was going to say with, like, us talking about the Packers being 1 to 2 years away, and I think if you're a Packers fan, maybe kind of worries you a little bit is, he's in his second year. So it's like if he's – and I think their offense, I think Josh Jacobs is the oldest guy on the offense, and he's like 27. Like, they're the youngest team in the NFL. They don't really have those vets on either side of the ball, so you could see why when things start going bad, it's like, should a second-year tight end who's kind of starting to ascend as like a big-time dog, like, I don't know if it's fair that he's the guy who needs to kind of bring the locker room together and be like the leader to kind of get him back on the right path.
There's some young guys. I think Ray, right? Like, there's some leaders that are leaders like
out the gate
immediately, Yeah. And then there's some guys that evolve into their leadership roles. I think as the team continues to evolve and you're still on the team photo that's on the wall in the hallway longer and more photos than everybody else, it's like you've been here, you kind of understand how this is supposed to go. It's a tough thing whenever there's adults and a lot of money at line and how you think something's supposed to go and how it's actually going. I couldn't even, like, I'm so happy I played the position I played. It's like there is not even a question of me to talk. So I don't even have to. Not that I saw anything in the first.
But everyone can be their own. Like, there's all different kinds of leaders, though. By you doing your job and them seeing you take it serious, like, that's being a leader. That's part of it. We're like, hey, it's not cool. It's not cool to mess around and think it's funny if you mess up or something goes wrong. Like, that's when culture gets really bad. If you see guys like joking about getting beat deep or something, like, hey man, like, this is never funny. Actually,
we saw a guy come onto a plane after we got our ass beat, worried about card debt, and that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. That's what I do. That's what I do. I'm about done with all this. What am I wasting my time for doing this?
And emotion.
Yeah, why do I care? Why do I care? That was somebody else getting the ball. Yeah. That was somebody else getting the ball. We just got smoked.
Pay your debts.
Bingo, loud, laughing, coming on the plane. It's like, what? What are we talking about, man?
Well, you could have been a
See
jag
you on Monday, maybe.
Like, you could have been a jag-off, too, after you got arrested and just been like, fuck it, whatever.
No, I couldn't have been. They would have got
Well, but you know what I mean. Like, that's.
I was nowhere near good enough to be that big of a distraction on bye week, and that was a conversation I was having with myself in my cell that particular morning. Whoa, I can't wait to get out of here. It felt like I was in Aaron Rodgers' darkness, but instead it was a glass cage in the holding cell because I was a special inmate. While all these others were just staring at me while we were all going in for booking, I was just in the middle of my thoughts, and there was a large dump in the toilet because I don't know who the previous special inmate was, but they certainly were very comfortable dumping in a glass box because it smelled like absolute crap. The sandwich gets tossed into me. I'm obviously not hungry. What is this? Supposed to be bologna. Supposed to be a fake meat. What does that even mean? What do you mean it's supposed to be a fake meat? All right, I'll try it. It wasn't bad. A little cracker they gave it, not terrible. That was a nice little distraction for like 3 to 4 minutes. And then all of a sudden I'm back to, I have no job. I have no degree. I just embarrassed my family. Embarrass my whole team. It's all over. I don't know if there is a lot of those fears anymore from anybody. Like, I feel like there isn't a lot of fear. I had a chance to talk to Paul Heyman, who I'm incredibly lucky to get a chance to chat with, and I'm a massive fan of. He's been in the wrestling business, I think, 30-some years, since he's like a teenager, actually. Wow. And I asked, literally, he's been around it forever. He's one of the pioneers of professional wrestling. Without him, I have no idea where wrestling would be. Obviously, it would not be where it is right now. But I talked to him, I said, like, man, I'm very worried that I'm going to get exhausted. Like, I am not. I'm tired maybe some days because I haven't slept enough. But every day I wake up like I'm enjoying what the hell I'm doing. Like, I am very happy to wake up every single morning and do what we do for a living, because we're in the middle of a lot, right? Like, I've made cross-country flights a lot over the last 10 days, and I'm worried that I'm going to get exhausted because I've seen a lot of other people kind of go through it, especially in the wrestling business. It happens because of how much to travel or whatever. So I asked Paul, I was like, Paul, I'm worried that in the future I'm going to get exhausted and it's going to, become a thing for me. I was like, how have you ever combated that or whatever? He gave me this speech about every day I'm auditioning, hoping that they'll invite me back the next day. So there's no chance to be exhausted. There's just a chance that you get your ass fired every single day. So I try to bring it every single moment I have an opportunity. It isn't like there is, I'm going to get tired. And what if there is? Well, you have no idea. I'm just hoping to get invited back, he said. And I'm like, Holy fuck, I needed to hear that. I needed to be reminded that everything can disappear tomorrow. And it's like Adam Vinatieri had that feeling. Adam Vinatieri thought he was going to get fired every single day if he missed a kick or didn't show up. It's like that fear of being replaced, that fear of losing your thing. I don't think there's a lot of that anymore because these dudes are getting money whenever they're like 17 years old. So there hasn't been like the moment of like chaos, oh shit. And I think we're creating a little bit of a different lifestyle for people. How do we kind of ride the wave of what we're going through will inevitably determine which teams are going to be great and which teams are not, though, AJ.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to, like, when you talk to any guy evaluating people at the combine, like, they want to know if you love football. Like, that is gigantic for them because, like, even if things don't turn out like whatever, like, they know they can still trust you and you can be a good teammate, you're going to be accountable, and you'll fight through injuries and things like that. But, I don't know how it works with if people, like, you need team guys. You need guys that are worried, hey, I want to be accountable to these 10 other dudes. I don't want to leave my corner out to drive. I'm supposed to buzz the curl flat, and I told him, hey, I'm going to be under that 10-yard out. I'm going to be there. I'm not going to hang my corner out to dry. Like, you just always have to have that paranoia, like, I'm going to ruin it for these guys. And I think that's, I don't know. I think a lot of guys do have it, but unfortunately, when you have a couple guys that don't, it can ruin a whole team.
Hey, that can infiltrate, too.
Yeah.
Crop can infiltrate.
Quick.
Create the little different silos within the locker room where you
then guys start
complaining
fighting,
about shit.
then you start fighting each other. Like, oh, why don't you do your job? Okay, here we go. And then if you don't figure that out, it just lingers.
Which goes to the importance of having, like, glue guys in the locker room as well. It's so hard to build a locker room. You need vets that are good leadership, that have good leadership, good work ethic. You need people in the locker room that are glue. Like
Still productive, too. They still, you know. It's still business.
Yeah.
You got to
not just the wise old man giving you advice.
Exactly.
You got to make plays too.
Yeah, because nobody's listening to shit if you're not making any plays.
Yeah, you can't just be the rah guy. Let's cameras are here. Let's give a good victory speech. Let's get a game ball for getting 2 tackles. Like, no, you got to be busting your ass throughout the week, being productive. Obviously, taking care of your body, because you talked about it. It's not like college or high. Like, these are grown-ass men with families. And, like, even with the coaches, like, these are your coaches, but these are, like, your coworkers and the good coaches to say, like, hey, if you guys, and as a pro, you shouldn't just be showing up to the meeting, like, trying to get through. Like, you should probably have some input. Like, if you're out there playing this role, hey, I've been seeing this on film. What you think about this, coach? I think those are the best teams, especially when we get to this point in the year. And you talked about that whole list you got to do year in and year out. That's much easier to do when you come back to the tip. Because we know every year it's a new group. Regardless of how many changes, you change 40 different guys or 4 different guys, it's a different group. But the more of those things you can come back to the plate in April and you have kind of set like the standard, the foundation, now you can build on top of that, and that's how you can compete year in and year out.